Police have released video of 4 suspects wanted in a break-and-enter investigation.
To prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home, leave your fobs at your front door.
3 masked men walk up to this Kleinberg home, smashing the front door with the handle of a gun.
2 adults and 2 children, aged 6 and 9, were within the residence.
Go to Glock. Watch that. Boom.
You're a bitch, yeah?
A gunman disguised as a police officer killed 16 people in a shooting rampage just across the province of Nova Scotia. This would be the deadliest shooting in Canadian history.
To the people of Canada, and especially those in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Starting this October, the Liberal government will be deploying a voluntary firearms buyback program to be tested on the population of Cape Breton. The language is deliberately misleading. In 2020, the RCMP's catastrophic failure resulted in dozens of our people dead at the hands of Gabriel Wortman, and the only real policy change from this horror has been the disarmament of law-abiding Canadian citizens, whom Wortman, a known criminal and police informant, was not. In any fight, you must have a firm understanding of your motivations, your reasons why, to have any hope of being victorious. And much has been said by the inept fools and the impotent Canadian firearms lobby about your right to recreational sports shooting or property rights. Today, I will do what they are too afraid to do and tell you the truth. The real reason why. Throughout all human history, not just recent or modern, rulers, kings, criminals, governments less malevolent than our own have committed acts of tyranny, oppression, intimidation, political killings, slave labor systems, and even light of day mass murder and genocide. And what did they all have in common? That in every instance, an oppressive majority, unchecked criminal hordes, or the state itself, enjoyed a monopoly on violence. All significant means of fair competition in the realm of violence are removed from the hands of those they wish to oppress. And as children, when first learning of these dark chapters of history, didn't we wonder, why didn't they just fight back? Because the means of resistance were systematically taken away, one by one, until none remained. And this is like asking a man tied to a chair, about to be tortured, why is he allowing himself to be tortured? We're asking the wrong question. Why did he allow himself to be tied to the chair at all? Did the torturer promise that it would make him safer? Let's look at the resume of these so-called leaders who are not asking, demanding and threatening that you surrender any reasonable means of self-defense in an increasingly violent and unpredictable time. The RCMP since 2015, this bungling institution, has lost 845 guns, and this excludes firearms that were stolen, the majority of which have not been recovered, including 2 machine guns. The RCMP will argue it's not just safe for private citizens to handle these weapons. Only they are. Well, according to the numbers, that isn't true. In Canada, there's an estimated 4 million firearm owners who have lost an estimated 27,000 guns since 2015, so a percentage rate of loss of 0.67%. There are 19,000 RCMP officers who have lost 895 in the same amount of time at a 4.4% rate of loss. These so-called professionals are over 6.5 times more unsafe and unprofessional in securing their firearms than the public is. And 2 machine guns. But when foreign gangs, home invaders, or one of their deranged criminal informants is on a rampage through Colchester County, you can count on them to show up in 1 to 2 business days and possibly charge you for defending yourself, presuming that you are still alive. They can't keep us safe, and they can't come close to matching the public's rate of weapon security, so who is making these decisions? Who are these people demanding that we relinquish all individual capacity for meaningful self-defense at a time of unprecedented violence and danger? These are the people who have presided over the most destructive government in our history. We are bankrupt, we are sick, Our homes and communities are awash in foreigners, crime, poverty, and despair. The government has nearly doubled in size and helped itself to a substantial and plentiful amount of pay raises. These are the same individuals that forced our country into economic suicide with its scientifically baseless and morally reprehensible lockdowns for your safety, in which our communities suffered, our elderly died alone, and our children's development and psychology suffered, while the health and well-being of many have also been irreparably changed. When confronted with peaceful Canadian protesters, the mere sight of it, the guilt, had the government seeing pitchforks and torches that didn't exist. They hid like criminal rats in bunkers rather than speak to anyone, and rather than extend an open hand in conversation, they reached for the club. Women, elderly, and war veterans were mercilessly beaten in the streets, struck by rifles and trampled by horses, property destroyed, bank accounts seized, political prisoners taken and convicted of mischief are now facing significant prison time for this perceived crime of trying to desperately communicate to a government that refuses to listen and doesn't care. And now, these same individuals are advancing legislation that would see you, me, our children, anyone they deem hateful, to be punished with life in prison for speech crimes. Murderers and rapists get bail, political prisoners get 10 years to life. And this is who is not asking, threatening and demanding that you surrender your property and reasonable means of protecting yourself and your family. Private firearm ownership is not for recreational shooting. It's not for hobbyists. It's not even really for hunting. We got along just fine with bows and arrows for a very long time. The Romans and Assyrians systematically disarmed the people they conquered. King Edward and King Richard of England disarmed and forbade the possession of weapons or training to prevent rebellion. The Holy Roman Empire practiced common sense blade control. In more recent times, Cambodia, China, the Soviet Union, and more disarmed their subjects and went on to conduct the worst examples of mass killings in known history, with potentially over 100 million victims. We've seen the economic failure in Venezuela, whose government then began disarming its population with the very same sort of voluntary language and predictably, once complete, engaged in political killings, and tens of thousands of Venezuelans are now dead amid ongoing violence. The primary, true reason a free society must have the means of arming themselves is to ensure a protective barrier that exists against any oppressor who would harm them, foreign or domestic. Unlike the victims of the past, we have an advantage of being here to learn from their tragedy and choose our destiny with our eyes courageously open. Canada, Cape Breton, you have an opportunity here now to represent not just Cape Breton, but every Canadian, alive, present, and in the future. Some of my closest friends and very capable warriors are from Cape Breton. I was even brave enough to date one of your women. You're a strong people. That's why you've always carried more than your fair share. Because you can. The prospect of handling a monopoly on violence to just these criminals and delusional maniacs in our government for our children to inherit is terrifying. You could send a message to Ottawa on behalf of Cape Breton Island and every Canadian left who dares have any dignity. You could not answer the phone. You could not answer the door. You could say no. Our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, said no restriction should be placed on carrying firearms because Canada was neighbored by the United States, from which occasionally flowed lawless characters in the habit of carrying weapons. If it was known that our people were prohibited by law from defending themselves, these parties might be encouraged to greater depredations. But it's not just criminals from the U.S. to worry about now. Every day, there are violent criminals coming from all over the world to worry about, including the criminals in Ottawa. After everything we've witnessed and all that we know, do you trust the RCMP? Do you trust your provincial government? Do you trust who is in Ottawa now and whoever comes next? Forever. If the answer isn't an instinctive, unflinching yes, if the answer is, I think so, or maybe, it's simply a risk with our children's lives and future that none of us should feel selfish enough to take. And this decision is permanent. Sorry, Ottawa. You're asking for more than this veteran is willing to give right now. Good luck, Cape Breton.
It's more troubling than that. It's not only demoralizing, but we're creating an environment where police officers are disengaging. They're not taking those risks. They're not being proactive and intervening when they could be because of the futility of it.